the panel, and this week we have got a 5-person panel. We are going to talk World Juniors, everything you could possibly want to know about that. So let me introduce the panel to you. And our first panelist is our lead, who's helping our team as the lead when it comes to our World Junior coverage at the Hockey Writers. You know him from, he also covers the Vancouver Canucks. Matt Zator, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And another veteran of the panel, also covers the World Juniors for us, is Peter Baracchini. Hello, Peter. I think he's on mute. There you are. Hi, Peter.
How's it going, Mark? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we have a few other people joining our panel tonight. Next is Frankie Benvenuti. Hello, Frankie.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Can't
Good.
complain.
Perfect. Next, we have Dayton Reimer joining us. Hello, Dayton. There he is.
There we go.
There we go. Absolutely. And the last member of our panel tonight is Alex Hobson. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you all jumping in and joining us here. So let me just put it all to you guys first this way. Matt, we're going to start with you on this and then we'll get all your takes. So I look at the rosters that have been released. I know there's one team that we're still waiting on, but it seems to me anyway, based on who is there, Canada has a lot of players coming back. They seem like that they're the early favorite in my mind. So is that the way you see it? Are they the favorite, or if they're not, who is the favorite in your mind, Matt?
Well, I'm going with Canada for sure. I mean, they got 20 first-round picks, and it's unprecedented to have like all your forwards are first-round picks. Their powerhouse probably from lines 1 to 4, defense pairings, goaltending. I mean, if they don't get to the gold medal game at least, I think it's a disappointment. They've got probably. Yeah, like when you have Quinn Byfield as your second line center, I mean, that's pretty good. So I think Canada's the one to beat. I mean, the next one will probably be the States because they've got a lot of good talent there too. But Canada for me.
Peter, do you see Canada too?
I mean, it's kind of hard not to have them as a favorite at this point. I mean, Matt just nailed it on the head right now. The depth that they have, the amount of first-round picks, especially from the forward unit, it's absolutely crazy. And the depth that they have, is just up front is very eye-opening and very exciting because you have countless options for line combinations. Players can move up or down depending on how you see fit because you have a lot of skill, even all the way at the fourth line. And during the camp, when they were airing some of the games on, there was a line of Kirby Dach, Connor Zary, and Phil Tomasino, and they were lights out during the first few intra-squad games. And then Dach, Dylan Cousins, and Connor McMichael were a line. So you have different combinations right there, and it's going to be really, really interesting right now to see how this will play out for Canada because this is as deep as a team that we have ever seen, and it could rival that of some of the past teams as well.
Frankie, do you agree with them?
I mean, 100%, right? Like I wrote down the first line here of Jack Quinn, Kirby Dach, Dylan Cousins. You can't get much better than that. The one place I do think the Canadians are going to be a little bit suspect is in the net. Taylor Gauthier is, granted, good goal. He made the team. He's going to probably start. When you stack it up against the Americans who have Spencer Knight or the Russians who have Yaroslav Askarov, not exactly up to snuff, I'd say. But then again, the Canadians are loaded with talent. I wouldn't pick a head coach other than Andre Tourny to be the head coach of this team. Obviously, you can tell that might be a little bit of bias, but no, like he's the kind of guy who's going to get production out of everybody, top to bottom of the lineup. He could be on the fourth line. You might be the important guy in the day. So 100% my favorite.
Dayton, Canada for you or someone else?
Well, I'm going to be, a real trendsetter here. Also say Canada. It's really hard to look at that roster and not pick them as a favorite, especially with Bach coming back. He's got a full season of NHL experience under his belt. Now, I will back up Frankie. I think their goaltending isn't as strong as it could be. I'm not saying that there's any better choices for this year, but there's no Carter Hart, there's no Carey Price. It's going to be, I think, a little bit a weaker area for Canada. And then when comparing it to the States, I think that's going to be the biggest competition, especially if you go head-to-head in the playoffs. That's a team that has a comparable top 6, maybe even top 9. Their defense is also very strong, and then they've got an incredible goalie tandem in Dustin Wolf and Spencer Knight. That's tough to compete against. So Canada's my favorite, but by a hair. I think the Americans are going to be really nasty this year.
All right, Alex, we'll give you the last word on Canada if they're the favorite in your mind.
You want me to be honest, or you want me to say something different so I can have a different opinion here?
Whatever you want to bring the heat.
No, I mean, you guys pretty much nailed all the takes that I had. I think Canada's the clear-cut favorite here. They've got star power at every single position. And obviously, like Frankie said, their goaltending is a little bit suspect, but I think their goaltending is good enough to bring him a gold medal. And personally, I just think their skill is going to be too overwhelming to hand over the other countries. Having a 1-2 punch up the middle of Kirby Dach and Quinton Byfield is going to be something that I think will be too overwhelming for any other country to handle. Personally, I think the only country that's going to give them a run for their money is Russia, because they've got Yaroslav Askarov back there, and I think he's going to, I won't say carry, but I think he's going to be a big part in getting Russia into the medal rounds. But aside from that, yeah, Canada is the absolute favorite.
Alex, you stole my lines. I think Russia is actually going to have a really good tournament. Not only with the Skarov, but there is some really good talent on there that I think can definitely give teams a run for their money. So that I agree. I think Canada is the favorite, but I think back to the Helenka Gretzky tournament when Skarov beat Canada. I mean, it's not out of the question. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but we'll see how it goes. So, Peter, we'll start with you on this one. So, outside of that one team, like we mentioned, Switzerland, the rosters are out. So, give me the 1 or 2 players that you're really surprised to see, and it can be from any team, that are going to not be a part of this tournament.
I mean, I'm going to go straight to Team Sweden. I mean, obviously with the COVID situation and the positive test, it's going to be a tournament without, Henriksen. It's going to be without top prospect William Eklund, William Wallander, and Helga Grand, was the one cut that kind of surprised me, but at the same point, it really didn't, because they got a lot of our mobility and two-way play on their back end. So because of the amount of defense that they had, it was shocking, but not at the same time, because you could have filled that kind of a taxi squad kind of role just in case. But even players that were supposed to participate that didn't, like Moritz Seider and Nick Robertson, they both had really good chances to make their respective teams, but because they feel the NHL clubs feel that they have a good chance to make the team, it was just automatically out of the question. So obviously I wanted to see Shane Wright on the team for Team Canada. I wanted to see what he could bring. I thought he was cut a little bit too early. That's just my opinion, but we're going to see more of him from down the line.
Frankie, what about you?
Well, sticking with the trend of the Canadian crease, I mean, Brett Brochu was lights out in those two scrimmage games, I guess. I thought at that point that we might be looking at the starter for Team Canada, and to not see him be one of the 3 goalies that made it, that really surprised me. But how about Atu Räty out of Finland? A guy that we're still talking about is potentially the number 1 overall pick, and he's not there. So that was my guy that I had pegged as my player to watch out of Finland in that article that I wrote a couple of months back. So he's not even there. So I think him and Brett Brochu for me are the 2 guys that I'm kind of floored aren't there at all.
Definitely agree on Brochu. Dayton, what about you?
Well, Grons was a big one for me. That was I thought he was one of the best offensive defensemen that they were bringing out of, I guess, their big top 3 for Broder, Johnfoot, and Zator. But Ratty, he was another one. But I'll throw in another name. Adam Beckman. I thought his cut was a little bit surprising from Canada. He was huge for the Spokane Chiefs last season in the WHL. What was it, 130 points? 113? It was around there. Of course, he wouldn't have been a top line guy, but I think he would have had a great spot on 3rd or 4th line, playing more of an energy role. And see him there. I think it was a little surprising to see him get cut, but like, I get it. It's tough to make those choices.
Definitely. Alex, what about you?
I think Peter and I might have been working off of the same cheat sheet here, because I am also very surprised that Sweden cut Helge Grants. Taking a look at his skill set, he's 6'3", he's a right-handed defenseman, just drafted this year, so he's got age on his side as well. He's got 7 points in 17 SHL games, which I think is very impressive for someone at his age and his skill set to have playing against men. I was also pretty surprised at Shane Wright getting cut. I mean, I think there's a little less surprise for me there because he is super young. He's only 16 years old. But I thought they would have thrown him a bone as an extra forward, just like, well, not as an extra, I guess, but thrown him a bone like they did with Connor McDavid in 2014. But I also decided that him not playing this year in the OHL may have contributed to that. Maybe they would have wanted to wait until he's got some more OHL experience under his belt before naming him to the team. So I was a little surprised to see him get cut, but aside from that, everything else was pretty straightforward.
And what do they need to see in him, the way he scored goals in that first year, though? But
yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, and we'll give the last word to Matt on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I picked a good coverage teams. They're just all saying the same thing I'm going to say. Helge Grants is that was a big one for me. Ratty as well. I'm going to throw another one from Sweden, Canucks draft pick, 7th round pick, but Victor Persson went right to the end. And I was actually surprised I'm not getting at least the extra defenseman. But I mean, there's so much talent on defense, and but it's exciting to see just a Canucks draft pick there, 7th round pick, to actually have a chance on the team. So, but yeah, it was a surprise for me for not being just that last defenseman put in there.
All right, so it's about approaching 10 minutes to 9 here. Again, if you're just joining us, episode 12 of the Hockey Writers Live. I'm your host, Mark Scheig, and we're in the World Juniors panel tonight with Matt, Peter, Frankie, Dayton, and Alex joining us to get you ready for the upcoming tournament. So Frankie, for this one, let's flip the script a little bit. So which player or two were you surprised made a particular roster?
So honestly, I stewed over this question for a little bit, and I struggled to come up with a single name because I look around the rosters and I don't think there's a single guy that I think doesn't deserve to be there. Right. I think everybody that ended up making these teams deserves to be on them. So as far as surprise, I really don't have any. It's more on the people who got cut. And I think that simply comes down to the amount of roster spots with the amount of guys that were vying for them this year.
No, that's actually very fair. Dayton, what about you?
Yeah, of course. I think all the guys who made the team have earned a spot. One name that didn't jump out for me, though, was Hunter Skinner on the U.S. He essentially slots into the 9th defenseman on the team, and he doesn't really, I think, bring any new skills to what they already have. Other than being a right-handed shot, that's about it. And he's big, he's 6'3", he had 32 points in the UHL last year. But they also have that in Drew Hellison and Jake Sanderson, and Tyler Clevin is looking like a guy who can do that now. And I think he's 6'3", 6'4" as well. So I would like to bring maybe Jaden Struble, a Montreal pick. He's got a real dynamic step. Or just go for the eighth defenseman and bring Thomas Borlow, who they got for forwards, and just make that forward core even scarier. So that's one name that I thought was a little surprising that was kept on the roster.
Okay. And Alex, what about you?
So I was kind of in the same boat as Frankie on this one, where I had a hard time picking a name in the sense that you never really want to say so-and-so didn't deserve to make the team, because obviously if they played well in their selection camp, they deserve to be there. But one name that a couple names I was surprised made it would be, for example, for the States, Drew Hellison, defenseman, Colorado Avalanche prospect, and Jackson Lacombe, Ducks prospect. The fact that they made it over someone like Dayton said, Jaden Struble for the States was a little bit surprising, because I looked into Struble and he had 10 points in 21 games as a freshman at Northeastern University last year, and he's off to a good start this year as well. But I also did read something saying that the States have one of the smaller teams this year, so maybe they would have wanted to go more of like a defensive stay-at-home size dynamic to compete with teams like Russia. But aside from that, I don't really have much else to say. I think everyone who's there deserves to be there.
All right, Matt and Peter, anything else to add? Just to start with Matt, anything for possible surprises in your mind?
I was going to say that Brad Lambert for Finland, not saying he's surprised for the talent that he possesses, but just for his age. I mean, 16 years old, but he is playing in a men's league. He's doing quite well too. 2022, probably top 3 projected. But just saying because of his age being on the team, but not saying anything about his talent. He's definitely deserves to be there on that.
And Peter, you get the last word.
Yeah, I mean, to echo Frankie, Alex, and everybody else, everybody deserves to be on there. But one player that specifically caught my eye that, you know, played his way onto the team and really does deserve to be there is Jordan Spence for Team Canada from the Moncton Wildcats. I mean, during the inter-squad games, he was probably one of the better defensemen on the roster. And he wasn't a standout in terms of flash, but he did the little things right. And I think that's what they were trying to go for in terms of finding that balance on the back end when you have Bowen Byram and Jamie Drysdale to try and join the rush. Might be pegged as a 6 to 8 defenseman in the depth charts, but I was really impressed with him with the way that he played.
Very good. So Dayton, we're going to start with you on this one. Now we're going to really turn up the heat, and we're going to call out some players here. So for this question, one player, any roster, which one player are you most excited to watch in this entire tournament?
I wrote down like 4 names that I could pick.
You can share 4 if you'd like. That's all right.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. I think Kirby Doc is the easy answer. He's coming in from playing Chicago last year, and he's going to have that extra experience that a lot of the other, well, no one else really has. I'm really excited to see what Tim Stützle and JJ Paterka do in Germany. So last year they came in, they're pretty underrated, and they blow everyone away. Stützle becomes the 3rd overall pick, I think largely from his World Junior performance. Paterka almost becomes the 1st round pick. And then their buddy Lucas Reichel also snuck into the 1st round. I think that surprised a lot of people.
Yep.
This year, they're not underrated anymore. People are going to be watching, and I want to see how they're going to perform with that. And especially with Reichel, who won't be there with the COVID positive aspect. He was their goal scorer. And I mean, the other guys can score goals as well, but that's kind of Reichel's bread and butter. I think he might have led the team, or was close to. I think he had 4 goals last year, if I remember correct. My final name is Martin Kromiak in Slovakia. He was probably the best Slovakian last year who didn't make the team. He was a late cut, or maybe an early cut, but he led the team in the under-20 team in every international competition in points, and they didn't put him because he was young. And I think he'll be coming in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder and want to make that impact on the world stage. So those are my guys who I'm going to be watching and paying pretty close attention to.
Yep. And Kromiak's interesting too, watching him in the OHL. That's a good call out on your part. Alex, what about you?
Dayton hit my name right in the middle of his list there. My most excited player to watch this year is Tim Stützle for sure. I've been a big fan of his ever since watching him at the World Juniors last year, leading up to the draft, obviously. And I think Germany is a real dark horse in Division A, just because the only big fish they really have to worry about competing against are Canada and Finland. I think they're more than capable of taking down the Swiss and the Slovaks. And I mean, Stützle at last year's tournament spoke for himself. He had 5 assists through 5 games, still yet to score a goal at the World Juniors. So stay tuned for that this year. But yeah, just seeing someone as skilled as him, I think I'm really excited to see how he embraces that role of number 1 center and how I think he's going to take a big step this year. And it sort of reminds me of what we could have seen from Draisaitl in 2015 if the Oilers let him go to the World Juniors. Because if you recall, they didn't let him go to the World Juniors that year, but they sent him back to the Kelowna Rockets. So,
Yep. All right, Matt, what about you?
I'm going with Marco Rossi. from Austria, and I mean he's going to be the best player on that team. But his skill is just off the charts. I'm excited to watch him. And Canucks prospect Vasily Podkolzin from Russia, not doing super, in the KHL, but I mean that's more ice time. He's going to be given a ton of ice time by Igor Larionov in this tournament, and he's already been named team captain. I'm really excited to see how he embraces that role, and could see him in the NHL this year too. So he's probably Rossi and Podkolzin for sure.
And Peter.
I mean, I got a long list just like Dayton. My easy answers are Lucas Raymond, Alexander Holtz, and Anton Lundell, all three of which are just outstanding prospects. And, I'm just looking to see how well Raymond and Holtz play off each other for Sweden and how much dominance Lundell can bring for Team Finland. Also sticking with Finland, Brad Lambert, as Matt alluded to before, he's just a really strong offensive dynamo, and he's a 2022 draft pick. Some pressure on him because he's the youngest player on the roster, but he has elite level talent just like Shane Wright, and that's why I kind of wanted Shane Wright to be on that team and try and have that, battle for that top spot in that draft as sort of like a precursor. And Matt Beniers from Team USA. He's already shown to be a major powerhouse for Michigan early on. And I'm just looking to see what more he can bring. And he's just going to be absolutely lethal for the team right now. Could possibly play his way up. Might start off in the bottom half of the roster, but he could easily elevate his play.
And Frankie, you get the last word.
Yeah, so I've got three, but one of them is for the next question, so I'll go with my two. You can probably guess the direction I'm going here. I'm taking Marco Rossi because whatever he can do with that Austrian team this year, it's going to be impressive. If they can manage to win one game, I think the entire country of Austria loses its mind. And I'm also going to go with Jack Quinn because I think there's a lot more to Jack Quinn's game than just scoring goals, and I think that's finally going to get exposed to the world. That guy is one of the smartest hockey players I've ever had the pleasure to watch. And, I think it's going to be interesting too, because if you remember back to the draft, that order flipped. I don't think there was anybody who had watched those two guys extensively for a long time that thought Jack Quinn was going to go ahead of Marco Rossi. So to see that happen, I was in awe that actually happened. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with those two in this tournament and if the Sabres look smart or not for doing that.
And I'll give you all one bonus player to watch. And I think that everybody is still stunned at the Igor Chinakhov first-round pick in the draft, but we're going to see why the Columbus Blue Jackets took him as high as he did, because the kid can score, the kid's got swagger, and he's now going to have a chance to be able to demonstrate what he's got. So he is going to definitely be my player to watch here. So for the next one, we're going to start with Alex, and we're going to flip it a little bit now to which player do you feel like is kind of the under the radar star? So they're going to be the player that's going to shine, but really isn't getting the attention. So not the Kirby Docs of the world, but who are we not giving attention to that's really going to have an impact?
Well, Mark, you pretty much teed me up perfect for my answer, because I have Igor Chinakhov in that exact role. I remember watching the draft, and when the Jackets picked him at 20th overall or whatever it was, I remember Brian Burke was actually like, I actually have nothing to say about this player. I have no information. I don't know what he's about or anything. But if you've been paying attention to how he's been playing in the KHL this year, like you said, he is a super dynamic player. And I think he's going to be one of Russia's top contributors. And like you said, I think fans, not only of the Jackets, but of the World Juniors and the draft in general, are going to get to see what he's really about and why Jarmo went so far off the board to get him. And I also had Brad Lambert up there. Obviously, it's kind of hard to say under the radar because he's such a highly touted name heading into 2022. But just the fact that he's going to be buried behind guys like Anton Lundell and Roby Jarventie for Finland, I think he's still got a good chance to make some dynamic plays and be kind of like a B-side contributor, if you want to call him that. 7 points in 18 games for JYP in the Liga. It's definitely impressive. So those are my two guys.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
Well, I'm going with because of Sweden's decimated roster. Arvid Kosmar, Canucks draft pick as well. He's going to be given a super opportunity when he probably wouldn't be. He probably would have been a third, fourth line center in normal circumstances, but he could be elevated to a second line role and playing with some super talented players. And he's great defensively. He's got some offensive skill. 7th round pick. But I mean, he's going to be given a huge opportunity. He could run with it. And Dawson Mercer from Team Canada. You can't really count this guy out either. His leadership, the way he plays the game. I think he's going to be a guy that even if he doesn't score goals, he's going to make an impact just being on the roster.
And I'll just add one thing to what he just said for Devils fans specifically. It's a good call out on Mercer. I think, many Devils fans are going to look at Holtz. Well, take a look at Dawson Mercer. He's going to be really good, what you said. So, Peter, what about you?
Matt took the first one, Dawson Mercer, for me. But yeah, he's just a Swiss Army knife kind of player. He can do everything, and no matter where he is in the lineup, he's going to excel. My other one is Daniil Chaika from Russia. There's a lot of uncertainty or question marks surrounding Russia's defense this year, mainly because there's not, a lot of experience. And Frankie had a great write-up on that with his final roster for Russia. But I think he's someone that could potentially rise to the occasion, earn some big minutes, and be that go-to guy on defense for Team Russia to help lead the blue line in that regard.
Hey, Frankie, what do you got?
Yeah, so I got 2 guys from Russia, and one of them's on the defensive front, and I think Shakir Mukhamadullin is a guy that has the chance to step up and be that number 1 defenseman for Russia. The more and more that I've watched that guy, the more I've fallen in love with his game. The second guy I've got, one of my absolute favorite players in the OHL right now with the Windsor Spitfires, Igor Afanaseyev.
Yes. Yep.
Big time forward, can skate, he can shoot, he can make plays. He's a smart hockey player. I think that is the kind of guy. He scored 67 points last year in 62 games. He's got, I believe it's 3 points in 4 KHL games this year. The guy's an animal. And I think that's a guy that if he's down towards the bottom of Russia's lineup, might get slept on a little bit. I think he'll put up some pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah, Afanasyev is also a character too. I've interviewed him. He is funny. He's also a really good player, like you said. So Dayton will give you the last word on this.
Excellent. I'm going to go a little off the board here. So I mentioned earlier that I think one of the biggest reasons Chromiak didn't make the Slovak roster last year was his age. The Slovaks rarely take underage kids who aren't drafted, who aren't 19, 18 years old. This year they did. And I think that's the name you got to keep an eye on. And that's Simon Yemes. I think I said that right. So he's 16 years old, eligible for the 2022 draft, and he's playing professional league minutes in Slovakia. It is nuts. Like, he played 12 games last year as a 15-year-old in the Slovak league. He didn't get any points. He got a couple points this year, though, playing for HK Nitra. He spent the rest of his time in the under-20 league and the second Slovakia league. 15 years old. He led the under-18 defense in scoring last year with 16 points in 21 games for all international competition. This kid's got some serious crazy skill, and I think his age doesn't seem to be a factor at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do on a Slovak team that's, it's never the bottom, but it's never the top. So. One other guy I'm going to keep an eye on is Florian Elias in Germany. He led the under-18s last year. He had 10 points, but he's super undersized. He's 5'8". And I don't know if they'll give him a chance, but on a team that is lacking Reichel, it's also lacking Snyder. Maybe he sneaks in and he becomes the next underrated German, maybe not star, but NHL pick.
Good call. So we'll end it on what we have. One last question for everybody. We'll start with Matt on this one. So let's just lay it out. Your predictions out there right now. Give me your gold, give me your silver, and give me your bronze medal predictions.
Well, I've got obviously I said Canada was the favorite, so I'm going with Canada as the gold medalist. They're gonna win gold, and U.S. will be silver. And I'm gonna go. I was between Russia and Finland for bronze, so I'm going with Russia for the bronze.
All right, Peter.
Well, like Matt, Canada, I would assume would be the front runner for gold, so I'm going to take them for gold. I'm actually going to say that Sweden has a good chance to make it to the gold medal final. I mean, they still got a lot of depth, and they got two really stellar goaltenders in Alnefelt and Jesper Wallstedt in net. They could go with either or, so I think they were going to rely heavily on those two. And Russia as the bronze medalist.
All right, Frankie, what's your order?
Yeah, so I had written an article that had Sweden gold, Russia with the silver, and Canada with the bronze. And with what's happened to Sweden, I've got to change it. I'm taking the Russians for the gold. I'm taking the Canadians with the silver, and I like the Americans now to win the bronze.
That's exactly my order too, for what it's worth. Dayton, what about you?
I also foresee a Canada-US final. I think Canada takes it, but it's going to be one of those classics. Totally it doesn't end in a shootout. And then for the bronze, I think it's going to be a Scandinavian rivalry with Sweden and Finland. Sweden was decimated, but they still have a lot of talent. They've got the Terror Twins. They've got those two, maybe even three really talented goalies in Boston and Klang. And I think they sneak it over Finland.
All right, Alex, you get to wrap us up.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said at the start, I think Canada's going to take home the gold medal. I think Russia's going to get the silver because, like I said at the start, I think having Askarov between the pipes is going to do wonders for them. I think he's going to, like I said, not carry them, but I think he's going to play a big part in helping them get to this, the gold medal game. Mm-hmm. And it came down to the States and Sweden for me for third place. And I think I'm going to give the edge to the States because I feel Sweden was just bit a little too hard by the COVID bug, if you want to call it that. So, yeah, I think the States are going to take home the bronze.
Well, you all did excellent work tonight, and fans, make sure you follow all of them all the way through. We've got a World Juniors guide out there, and they are constantly pumping content out on the hockeywriters.com every day. So Matt, Peter, Frankie, Dayton, and Alex, thank you all so very much for joining in the panel. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it, Mark.
Thanks, guys. So fans, again, just a quick reminder, make sure you hit like and make sure you hit subscribe so you don't ever miss a thing. Again, we're going next Tuesday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Lisa Dillman from The Athletic is going to be here, and then we'll have another panel as well. Again, next Tuesday for episode 13 already of this little show that we've got started here. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come join us. We hope that we're fulfilling, giving you some hockey talk amidst all the craziness that's out there. Be well, be safe. Next Tuesday, 8 o'clock. We'll talk to you then. See you later.